Yes, in a way, yes. In a way, yes. It basically is going to help us to see if our we are actually being productive, and that and that our GDP is not how can I say, our GDP is not inflated or overrated or exaggerated, basically. Because remember, colleagues, GDP, how we're going to be calculating it is price times quantity. Let's put this here. Price times quantity. Now, if the quantity doesn't increase, meaning we're not being productive, but the price increases, it means we'll get our GDP will look big and we think we're being productive. But in actuality, the real reason our GDP increased is because price was increasing. But our quantity, it might have even reduced. Okay, it might stay the same, it might have reduced. So, due to increase in prices, you find your GDP looks big. So that's why we need to adjust it for inflation. And the way we adjust it for inflation is we select a base year, a year of reference. All right. That base year, we're going to use its prices for the consecutive years. All right. So that once the prices stay the same, we're going to see if our productivity has actually increased or not. Okay, so the reason why we're adjusting our GDP for inflation is because increase in price level can give us exaggerated GDP figures. Okay, and it wouldn't be nice you tell the nation, our GDP has increased, we're doing well, but the only reason for the increase in your GDP was just because price was increasing, but and your productivity didn't increase with the price. Okay, so this is the question here. Whatever country this is, it produces three goods: widgets, gizmos, finger magics. Okay, it produces these three goods. Each year, there's a certain price for the goods, all right, and the quantities. Okay, so the first question is calculate the nominal GDP for 2006 and 2007. Colleagues, any idea what we're supposed to do here? We are just going to be multiplying price times quantity for each of the goods, and then we total up. All right. That's the formula I will be using here. It's just price times quantity. Okay, so for the year 2006, all right, for widgets, we produced one, the price $100. One times 100, $100. So say nominal GDP. Another way to think of nominal GDP is the GDP with the current year's prices. Okay, that's another definition you find in textbooks. GDP with the current year's prices. So $100 multiplied by one plus. Did anyone try this by themselves, or you all waited for me? So, mm, so just multiplying price and quantity. Okay. No, just remember, whenever there's talk of nominal real GDP, you're just doing price times quantity, okay? So we tabulate 100 times 100 plus 10 times 80, 80 plus 5 times 4, 20. Okay? 100 plus 80 plus 20, we get 200. $200. Okay, that is the GDP for 2006. Any questions? Okay. For the year 2007, again, it's just multiplying the price of that year by the quantity produced in that year. So for widgets, the price increased to $210. We are still producing one widget. Gizmos, the price increased to $12. All right, at least we've increased our production. We're now making more of them. Damn. These thingamajigs, the price went down to $4, and now we're producing five of them. Hundred and ten times one, 110. 12 times 10, 120. 4 times 5, that is 20. So 120 plus 20, that is 140. Plus 110, our GDP is $250. Okay, that's the nominal GDP for 2007. Any questions? Okay, next part. Compute the percentage growth in nominal GDP from 2006 to 2007. So, colleagues, just remember this percentage growth. Whenever you hear percentage growth, always remember this concept: new minus old divided by old times 100%. Okay? Percentage growth for whatever it is. So, in this case here, the new is the GDP for the year 2007. The old is the GDP for the year 2006. Okay, and under here, old is for the GDP for the year 2006. So when you're answering this question, this is how you put it: GDP year 2 minus GDP year 1 divided by GDP year 1. Okay, but knowing you are following this concept, new minus old divided by old times 100. So the GDP for 2007 is $250. GDP for 2006 is $200. Excuse me. All right, so let's calculate the percentage change. 250 minus 200 Oh, that's 50. 50 divided by 200 times 100, 25%. So our GDP grew by 25%, the nominal GDP. Any questions? Question 3. Using 2006 as the base year, the year of reference, calculate the real GDP. Okay, so if we hold prices constant, we want to see were we actually being productive? Okay, because as I said, the nominal GDP it will give you, especially when price grow. Just hold on. Okay, colleagues. Whenever I get a phone call, you should remain solving so that we compare answers. Yes. So the real GDP. Let's calculate the real GDP for. Okay, just calculate real GDP. I'll be back. Okay, colleagues. I'm back. Yeah. Have we tabulated the real GDP? as I was gone. So real GDP, we're going to use the base year's prices. Okay. So for the year 2007, we're going to use the prices for the year 2006. Basically, we're holding price constant to actually see if we're truly being productive. Okay. So real GDP, we're using the base year's prices. And our base year here is 2006. So instead of using 110 for the widgets, which was the price for 2007, we'll use the base year price of $100. Okay. Instead of using this $12 for the, what product was this? For gizmos, we're going to use the $10 for the base year, 2006. And then for Thinga, or whatever that is called, we use the price for 2006. Yes. So notice, colleagues, what's happening here. We're using 2006 prices in 2007. The quantities for 2007 still stay the same. It's only the prices which we're going to use for the base year. So 100 times 1, that is 100. 10 times 10, that is 100. 5 times 5, that is 25. So our real GDP for the year 2007 is going to be $225. Okay. So here, this is giving us a more true picture in terms of productivity. Okay. We held the prices constant and wanted to see, are we being productive? Any questions? Mm-hmm. Yes. We're calculating the real, just hold on. We're calculating the real GDP for 2007 and using the prices for 2006. Continue, sir. That's the way to do it. No. It- yes, if they told you you're using the prices for the base year, so if 2005 is not the base year, then you won't use its prices. But in your, I get what you're saying. If we had choose the year 2005 and it was our base year, we would have been using its prices. Yes. So yes. So just remember, real GDP base year's prices. Okay, that's how you're adjusting for inflation, using the base year's prices because you are holding the prices constant. Okay, meaning the price is not going to change; it stays constant, so that you can see in actuality if your productivity has increased or not. Okay. Yes. Okay. What is the GDP deflator of 2007? So GDP deflator, this is how we measure inflation with the GDP. Okay, again, we'll be using base years again. Okay, the year of reference. Okay, so This is how we're going to calculate the GDP deflator. Then we're going to see what's the inflation rate between 2006 and 2007. So for GDP deflator for 2007, okay, nominal GDP over real GDP times 100. Now this 100 is not a percentage, okay? Here we're using index numbers. But with these index numbers, you can calculate percent change. Okay, colleagues? That 100 there is not a percentage. Okay? It's for index numbers. And index numbers can be used to calculate percent change. Okay? So when we do our tabulation, the nominal GDP for 2007 is 250. The real GDP 225. Multiply that by 100. Colleagues, what is 250 divided by 225? Okay, 1 point, we'll leave it to two decimal places. Okay, so 1.111 times 100. Okay, let's make life easy and just say 111. Okay, so now this is the GDP deflator. So now I'm going to show you how we use this to interpret inflation, where they're asking us here, what is the inflation rate between 2006 and 2007? And so, in order to find the inflation rate between 2006 and 2007, we also need to know the GDP deflator for the year 2006, which is our base year. So our base year, the GDP deflator is always going to be 100. Let me just show you how. Okay, just remember this. For your base year, your GDP deflator is always going to be 100. Let me show you that. So, because here we're trying to calculate the inflation rate. So we need two GDP deflators to compare, okay, to see the inflation rate. So 2006, the nominal GDP was what? 200. The real GDP, since it's the base year, so again, you will still use its prices. So also its real GDP is going to be 2006. Well, its real GDP is going to be 200. So yes. Any questions before I move further? The base year's nominal and real GDP will be the same number because remember, nominal GDP using the current year's prices. Okay, just hold on, colleagues. Yes. So 200 divided by 200, that is 1. 1 times 100, that is 100. So just remember this. The GDP deflator for the base year is always going to be 100. Now, back to the question, because we want to calculate the inflation rate. Yes. Okay. So remember, the real GDP, you're using the base year's prices. So in this case, the base year is 2006. So again, you still be using the 2006 prices. So you get the same GDP as the nominal. Yes. And that 100, as I said, is not a percentage. Okay. So I'll show you now how we use these three figure numbers, these hundreds. So as I said, one find the inflation rate between 2006 and 2007. So to find that inflation rate, you're just going to say 111 GDP deflator for 2007 minus 100 GDP deflator for 2006. So the inflation rate is 11%. Any questions? If the GDP deflator was, let's say, for 127, when you subtract it from the base year, 127 minus 100, that gives you a 27% inflation rate. This is the inflation rate. Okay. It is the inflation rate that we have tabulated here. Excuse me. So in this case, from 2006 to 2007, the inflation rate was 11%. That's how we interpret this in equations. What if the GDP deflator was 90? What do you what would be our inflation rate if this GDP deflator for 2007 was 90? What would be our inflation rate? Negative 10, yes. So it will say inflation has dropped by 10%. So here, when it's positive, inflation has increased. If it's negative, inflation has decreased. That's how you interpret inflation with GDP deflators. The base year, its index number is always going to be 100. Then the year that you want to compare with the base year, you get its nominal divided by the real GDP times 100, you get an index number. That index number you get, you subtract from 100. And that's how to that to give you the inflation rate. Finally, compute the real output growth from 2006 to 2007. So basically, the percent change in the real GDP. Colleagues, can we tabulate the percent change in the real GDP? In for 2006, since it's the base year, so its real GDP is 200. Okay. Then for 2007, the real GDP is 225. Okay. So can we tabulate the percent change? The new minus old technique. What's the percent change from 200 to 225? If these are 12.5%. Colleagues, are we all okay with how that 12.5 came about? Okay. So in actuality, our GDP grew by 12.5%. Not this 25%, no, but by 12.5%.